Hi, it's Karen Romano Young, back again with another chapter of A Girl, a Raccoon, and the Midnight Moon. Written and read by me, illustrated by Jessixa Bagley, and published by Chronicle Kids in 2020. Chapter 46, The Head Robber. Halloween goes on. Words came pouring out of Mom. I'm the one who took Vincent's head and hid it under the costume head. Bruce didn't know anything about it. If you're going to be upset with me. I had a good reason, Pearl. Can you please take off that head so I can see your face? And as soon as Pearl did, she was surrounded. Here she is, Francine cried, rustling up in the rock lady costume, happy and glittery. Hey, Pearl! Oleg's face glowed, so proud was he to have found the stone mason, broken the bad spell over the library and the garden and Vincent herself, and had his head hurried over by the mayor of New York City, her own honorable self. Pearl, you were great. That was Millie with Khadijah and Elsa beside her. You were the star. Simon seemed joyful. Not only was Pearl a success, but so was he and Lowe's Coyotes. Pearl stood in the middle of her amazing friends. How could she tell them what had happened to Vincent? What would happen if they knew about Mom's theft? She couldn't bear to look at her mother. So she focused her energy on her friends. She acted. You guys were the stars, she said. You were a great rock lady, she told Francine. The new head looks spectacular, she told Oleg. To Millie, Khadijah, and Elsa, she said, thank you for building the raccoon door. It was a hit. To Simon, she said, you coyotes can really rock. Pearl stayed with her friends, letting them float her away, avoiding Mom. Pearl's fury kept her from letting Mom into her thoughts, but she could feel Mom near, knew Mom's worried eyes were on her. Pearl didn't want to hear whatever Mom had to say about Vincent. She'd never wanted to hear anything less in her life. Jonathan Yoicks elbowed his way into the group, clutching his camera. Bruce lifted his chin toward the reporter. What are you covering tonight? The mayor pushing the library on election day? What else? It's breaking news after all. We'll still have to do work on the place, said Ramon. It won't just be the reading room that has to be brought up to code, but the whole basement beneath it. Pearl wondered what Mary Ann would think of that. As for this winter, she hoped the chimneys or the trees would be okay for such adaptable raccoons. Pearl asked him, what will you write? Yoicks tapped his chin. How the public libraries of the city contribute to their neighborhoods and should have higher budgets, especially ones with legends about reading raccoons. It's not a legend, it's real, said Pearl. All the best legends are, Yoicks said. By the way, your principal mentioned something to me about raccoon reading recommendations. Rex, said Pearl. Think we could publish them in the Moon? He asked. He slung his camera bag over his shoulder. You shouldn't promise to publish things if you're not going to, said Pearl. Oh, Pearl, Yoicks said softly. You ought to know by now that people don't always get to decide what happens, even if they feel like they know what's best. My boss. Pearl didn't want to hear about any more decisions being made by people in authority. A raccoon writes Rex, she said. Isn't that unique? Yoicks smiled and bobbed his eyebrows at her. Well, some good reader writes them. Ta-ta. The night was winding down at last. Alice and Dinesh had finished blowing out the jack-o'-lanterns and were walking up to the back door when Ramon nearly collided with them, holding out a white catalog card for them to read. I have to go. It's best for all. Sorry. Who wrote that? Said at least 5 voices. Vincent, said Francine. Mary Ann, said Mom. No, said Pearl. Mary Ann doesn't write in all capitals. That's Mr. Nichols. They looked at each other in dismay. Pearl was right. Nichols still had not been seen all evening. And look, here was his note, just as the library had found out who he really was. Now that the truth could finally be told about Nichols' construction, Nichols himself was gone. Pearl stood still. Her heart went out to Mr. Nichols, wherever he was now, her dear friend who held so many secrets, his own as well as hers. Had he left this note on purpose tonight, when he knew he could be lost in the crowd? She wondered if and when Yoix's article about Mr. Nichols's innocence would appear, and hoped it would be right away before he had a chance to get so far away that the Moon wouldn't be his local paper anymore. Like the sudden blart of a voice through a microphone, a realization blasted into Pearl's head. Mr. Nichols had known all along that Mom had taken Vincent's head, and he had kept the secret from Pearl. But she wasn't angry at him for that. He'd kept something from her that he knew would have upset her very much. That, she realized, was caring. She cared about him right back. If only she'd been able to do something to help him. A sidebar about ethics. I may be just a raccoon, but I've been taught to think for myself. And one of the things to think about is doing the right thing. That's what ethics is supposed to be. Good ethics means you'll do the right thing, even in a bad situation. But what if you do a bad thing? Say, steal a statue's head for a good reason? That's where ethics gets confusing. Feel free to have a debate. Take a stand on whichever side you choose. For Mom stealing the head, which created drama and got press and brought more people to the library, or for her not stealing it and the library being condemned and repurposed as apartments for just a few humans? I know where I'll be standing. By M.A.M. Oleg picked up his boulder-sized pumpkin to take home. Oleg, said Pearl, you're the man. He took a bow again and disappeared. Pearl's classmates had already left. That left Francine standing there. And you, Pearl began, then was overcome with shyness. I'm the stone woman, Francine suggested, laughing. Well, you're definitely covered in stone, said Pearl. Francine had at last been extricated from the rock lady costume and seemed much reduced, tiny, with her braids all frazzled and her whole self covered in silver-gray dust. Francine was looking down at herself and brushing at some of the silvery coating, and that made it possible for Pearl to say, you're the hero of the library. Francine grinned and shrugged and said, but I'm not the head reading raccoon. And now Pearl found herself alone in the back hall. She stood there biting her finger hard to stop the tears from coming. She became aware how quiet things were. It was the kind of quiet she had once been used to in this building. The quiet of a few librarians, a page, a book elevator creaking slowly upward, and a lot of books. She had so often been the only noise here. Now lately she'd only been here with other people. Things had changed. She was not just the librarian's child anymore. She was Pearl, and that was good. Pearl? Simon came into the light from the cert counter with his backpack on, his bike lock around his neck. We did a good job. Everything's good. As much as we could hope for. Yeah, said Pearl. I guess so. She thought back on the evening, on the day, on the weeks and months of trying and thinking and planning that had come before. They all had tried to do something, every one of them. Only Mom was a real live criminal, the kind that people had associated with this neighborhood all along. The idiot punk vandal head robber was her mom. Pearl bit her finger again, but couldn't stop the tears from coming out. Simon gently shook her shoulders and hugged her. It's going to be okay now, don't you see? She nodded and tried to stop crying. Simon hugged her again. Pearl, you're a knockout actor and storyteller. I don't know what's wrong, but so long as you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Simon, Pearl said, you're a knockout coyote and a rock star. She bolted the front door behind him and watched him unlock his bike from the rack and ride off down Lancaster Avenue. Pearl, you down there? It was Bruce calling from upstairs. Yeah. Get up here. I need a hand. Pearl climbed the stairs. She knew what she was going to find. Vincent's head sitting on top of his file cabinet.